Chapter 5 of Lease of Immovable Property, Section 105 to 117. TPA. In lease of immovable property, what is transferred is the right to enjoy the property. A lease is terminated by merger, forfeiture, surrender. Answer is all of these. Which type of property may be used in lease? Only immovable. Lease under Section 105 of TPA Act 1882 pertains to lease of immovable property. Lease has been defined under TPA Act in Section 105. A lease which is silent regarding the duration, but if leasee take possession, such lease is known as tenancy at will. Transfer of right enjoy of an immovable property in consideration is known as lease. In the view of Section 105 TPA Act, a lease of immovable property is a transfer of a right to enjoy such property in consideration of price paid or promised of money, a share of crops, service, or any other things in value. Which one of the following group of section deal with lease under TPA? Section 105 to 117. A lease can be made for certain period only, for perpetuity only, both A and B. A lease of a movable property can be for a limited period in perpetuity, can be expressed or implied. Which one of the following is not an essential element of lease? Competent transfer. Transfer of right to enjoy the immovable property of certain time is lease. Which one of the following, which provision of Transfer of Property Act define lease? 105. Which one of the following section of TPA? An amendment was made in the year 2002. 106. According to the amendment of TPA 2002, the period which the principle of Section 106 of the Act shall commence from date of receipt of the notice. A lease of agricultural land is terminable on the part of either leaser or leasee by 6-month notice expiring with the end of year of tenancy. In the absence of written contract, a lease of immovable property for a purpose other than agriculture or manufacturing shall deem to be leased from month to month, terminable by 15-day notice, The period shall commence from the receipt of the notice. In the absence of contract or local law or uses, a lease of immovable property or manufacturing purpose for manufacturing purpose shall deem to be lease for year to year. In the absence of contract or local uses of contract, a lease of immovable property for agricultural purpose is deemed to be year to year. For determination of lease from year to year under section 106 of Transfer of Property Act, the notice period is 6 months. What shall be deemed to be lease in case of agricultural lease in absence of written contract or local language? From year to year. A. The leaser give B, the leasee, notice to quit the property leased. The notice expire and B remain in possession. A give to B a second notice to quit the possession. Decide the validity of the first notice. The first notice is waived. The TPA Amendment Act 2002 has amended which one of the following section of TPA 1882? Section 106. In the transaction, no interest in the property is created. License. In which transaction no interest in the property is created? License. Under TPA, in the absence of contract or local law, monthly lease is terminable by 15-day notice expiring. In which one of the following cases the Supreme Court held that once the period of lease expires, the relationship of landlord and tenant ceases, and tenant became the trespasser, and therefore there is no question of the service of any notice under section 106 of TPA. Santi Devi versus Amla Kumar Banerjee, AIR 1981. Generally, a lease of immovable property for agricultural purpose shall be leased from year to year. A lease of immovable property from month to month is terminable on the part of leaser or leasee by 15-day notice. Duration of agricultural lease in the absence of written contract or local uses under section 106 of TPA shall be deemed to be the lease from year to year. Lease of immovable property from year to year is terminable on the part of either leaser or leasee 6-month notice. In absence of contract or local law, under local law uses to contrary, a lease of immovable property for manufacturing purpose shall deem to be from year to year. Terminable of lease of immovable property shall be in the following manner. by written notice. Lease of house for term exceeding 1 year can be made only by registered instrument. Under the TPA Act, lease from month to month can be made either by registered instrument or by oral agreement accompanied by delivery of possession. Lease of the immovable property for more than 1 year or year to year is made only by a registered instrument. A lease of immovable property from year to year or exceeding 1 year can be made only by registered instrument. A lease to minor is void. Where a lease of immovable property made by registered instrument, such instrument shall execute both by the leaser or the leasee. In which section of TPA the provision regarding the rights and liability of leaser and leasee is provided? Section 108. Where the time limit for lease is of a year or number of years, which is expressed to be determinable before its expiration. The lease omit to mention at whose option it is so tenable. Who shall have such option? Leasee. In which one of the following condition lease can be terminated? All of the above. Efflux by time, on termination of leaser interest or power, on merger. Determination of lease is dealt under which section of TPA? Section 111. In which one of the following cases a lease of immovable property does not determine? On the service of notice to quit, in which lease is determined by forfeiture, express surrender, by flux of time limited thereby. A notice under section 111 of TPA can be waived by express or implied consent of the person to whom it is given. Which one of the following is not a ground of determination of lease? Death of the leasee. Consider the following statement regarding the distinction between lease and license. A lease is a transfer of interest in a land, whereas license does not create any interest in the land. Lease can be assigned, but license cannot be assigned. Lease cannot be revoked until end of the term, but license, subject to certain exception, can be revoked. A leasee accepts from the leaser a new lease of the property leased to take effect during the continuance of the existing lease. This is an implied surrender of the former lease. TPA. Which one of the following is a ground for determination of lease by forfeiture? On breach of express condition. Provision for determination of lease for a purpose of transfer of property Act 1882 contained in Section 111. A valid lease can be determined by all of the above. Efflux by time, forfeiture on expiry of notice period for determination of such lease. A lease of immovable property does not determine on the death of the leaser. Which one of the following is a ground for determination of lease by forfeiture? On breach of express condition. A. The leaser give B. the leasee notice to quit the property leased. The notice expired and B remain in possession. A give B lease a second notice to quit. Then the first notice is waived. What is the effect of holding over? The lease is renewed. Ashok let a house to Bharat for 5 years. Bharat underlets the house to Kishore at monthly rent of 2000. 5 years expired, but Kishore continue in the possession of the house and pay the rent to Ashok. What is the status of Ashok? Tenant holding over. A let a farm B for the life of C. C dies, but B continue in the position as assistant. B lease is renewed from year to year. A transfer of property act effected by holding over of lease provided under Section 116. Which one of the following section of TPA deal with the effect of holding over of lease? Section 116. Choose the correct statement. Tenant at sufferance at the smallest interest which a person may probably get in a immovable property. In the absence of contract or local uses to the contrary, a lease of immovable property for any purpose other than agricultural or manufacturing purpose shall be deemed to be lease month to month. A let a house to B for 5 years. B underlet the house to C at the monthly rent of 1000. The 5 year expired, but C continue in the possession and the house and pay rent to A. The lease of C is renewed from month to month. A lease of immovable property may be cancelled by written information. A let a field to B on a rent of 500 and then transfer the field to C. B, having notice of the transfer in good faith, pay the rent to A. Here, D is not chargeable with the rent to C. Refuse to pay the rent to the leaser with the word that you are not my landlord. Amount to disclaimer and the lease can be forfeited. A lease of immovable property can be determined. An act influence with the property of another may be justified by the consent of the other in defense falling under lease and license. Which out of the following does not constitute agricultural lease? A lease for cultivation of indigo. Which one of the following transfer can be made orally? Surrender of lease. Which out of the following does not constitute agricultural lease? A lease for gathering fruit from tree. Which one of the following is not a transfer can be made orally? Surrender of lease. The provision of section 106 of TPA were substituted by the TPA Amendment Act 2002 and this provision came into force with effect from December 31, 2002. Transfer of right to enjoyment of the property for certain time is in consideration of price paid or promise to pay is called lease. In which one of the following cases transfer of immovable property can be made without writing? Lease for term of 11 month. Which one of the following cannot be transferred under TPA Act 1882? Space succession. What kind of transfer may be done orally? Surrender of lease. If the tenancy of immovable property is monthly, then in order to terminate the lease of it, a notice of which period shall be given. "15 days.